A recent MIT study found that nearly 92% of retail traders make decisions driven not by strategy, but by emotional impulse. That's the shocking truth behind why most traders chase signals, jump between setups, and end the week feeling defeated. Pro traders looked at this stat decades ago and took a different path entirely. They built a mindset around one good trade, one moment of clarity, one setup executed with precision. Because they knew something most traders never realize. You don't need 20 perfect trades. You need one perfect version of yourself. There's a moment in every trader's journey where they ask themselves a quiet question. Why do I keep repeating the same mistakes even when I know better? Mark Douglas called this the consistency paradox, where your mind knows what to do, but your emotions refuse to let you behave like a professional. This is why pros narrow their focus. When your world shrinks to one good trade, your emotional noise goes down and your statistical edge goes up. Most retail traders don't fail because of a bad system. They fail because they try to trade everything. They believe more trades mean more profits, but in reality, more trades mean more emotional traps. Jesse Livermore warned about this a century ago when he said, "The market punishes those who cannot sit still." The difference between pros and amateurs begins here. Amateurs chase the market. Pros wait for it to come to them. Think about this. The human brain processes over 30,000 decisions a day, most of them unconsciously. When a trader has 7 indicators, 3 watch lists, 5 time frames, and endless notifications, the brain goes into survival mode. Neuroscientists call this cognitive overload. When your mind is overloaded, it seeks relief. And in trading, relief comes in the form of shortcuts, impulsive trades, emotional exits, and revenge entries. But pros use a powerful psychological principle, pattern simplicity. Ed Seykota once said, "Win or lose, everybody gets what they want from the market. What pros want is clarity. What amateurs want without realizing is stimulation." This is why pros choose one good trade. It protects their clarity, their discipline, and their mental capital. When you focus on one good trade, something shifts inside you. Your mind stops rushing. Your breathing slows. Your chart becomes a map instead of a battlefield. You start seeing what's actually there, not what you hope will be there. And that's the identity shift every retail trader desperately needs. But here's the painful truth. Most traders never make this shift because they're unknowingly addicted to uncertainty. Brian Tracy says people are more motivated by avoiding discomfort than seeking success. Retail traders don't chase trades for profit, they chase them to avoid the discomfort of waiting. Pro traders embrace that discomfort and transform it into an advantage. There's another startling statistic from behavioral finance. Fear increases after a winning streak faster than after a losing streak. This means most traders sabotage themselves right after success. They think they're confident, but their subconscious is terrified of giving back profits. This fear leads to overtrading, early exits, and impulsive entries. Pros counter this through intentional focus. One good trade forces the mind to slow down and detach from the emotional high. Imagine looking at the market and feeling nothing pulling you. No fear, no excitement, no urge. Just observation. That's where pros live. Jack Schwager interviewed dozens of market wizards and found the same pattern. They were obsessed with quality, not quantity. They didn't care about how many trades they took. They cared about the behavior they brought into the trade. But retail traders carry hidden emotional programs, fear of missing out, pressure to grow accounts quickly, comparison with social media profits, and the belief that more action equals more progress. These programs sabotage them from the inside. Dr. Alexander Elder explains this clearly. Your biggest enemy is not the market, it is your own emotional habits. However, the solution isn't discipline alone, it's structure. When you commit to one good trade, your brain shifts from anxiety to clarity because the rules become simple. You're no longer thinking about 10 different things. You're thinking about one mission executed with precision. Here's the pattern interrupt most traders need. Ask yourself, what if the only thing standing between you and consistent profitability is not knowledge, but noise? Noise in your mind, noise in your strategy, noise in your environment. Reduce the noise, and your edge becomes visible. The goal is not to trade better setups, it's to become a better decision maker. That's the psychology behind the one good trade mindset. When you think like this, your emotional storms weaken. Your need for constant action fades. You become patient, selective, calm under pressure. This shift matters because trading is not about predicting price. It's about managing yourself. Douglas said the market is a mirror. When you chase everything, you're not seeing the market. You're seeing your inner chaos. When you focus on one good trade, you're seeing your inner discipline. And here's a secret pro traders rarely talk about. One good trade removes 90% of emotional problems. Because when your standards rise, your decisions simplify. You stop caring about noise, and your confidence comes from behavior, not results. The pro mindset begins the moment you stop trying to trade everything and start mastering the art of trading just one thing well. That's where transformation begins, and that's where your consistency starts.
6 months ago, a global financial behavior study revealed that more than 70% of retail traders lose money not because they lack a strategy, but because they lack emotional control. This is the raw reality of trading psychology. The market is not beating traders, their own reactions are. When you focus on one good trade, you remove the emotional overload that destroys most accounts. Neuroscience shows that when your brain is exposed to too many choices, your internal alarm system activates. This alarm hijacks your prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of your brain, and pushes you into impulsive behavior. That's why traders click buy and sell without thinking. It's biology, not stupidity. Jesse Livermore used to say that a trader's biggest profit doesn't come from entries, but from waiting. Waiting is a psychological weapon. But waiting is impossible when your focus is scattered across 10 pairs, 5 indicators, and endless setups. One good trade gives you mental room to breathe. If you look closely, retail traders aren't trading the chart, they're trading their emotions. They enter because they feel bored. They exit because they feel scared. They hold because they feel hopeful. Pro traders break this cycle through structure. They reduce everything down to one high-probability play they know inside out. But here's a twist most traders never consider. The more setups you follow, the weaker your intuition becomes. Intuition is not guessing, it's pattern recognition. Ed Sakota said that intuition becomes powerful only when you eliminate noise. When your focus narrows, your pattern recognition strengthens automatically. A Harvard study revealed that emotional decisions increase after every losing trade for the next 20 minutes. This means the average retail trader is making corrupted decisions without knowing it. By focusing on one good trade, pros reduce the number of emotional swing points. Less swings equals less sabotage. There's a hidden enemy retail traders face: anticipation anxiety. The fear of what might happen. The fear of missing the move. The fear of entering too late. This anxiety rises when the mind tries to track too many possibilities. One good trade eliminates unnecessary possibilities. But let's introduce another pattern interrupt. What if you removed every trade from your chart except the one that fits your perfect setup? Think about how much clarity you would instantly gain. That's exactly how pro traders operate. They know that confidence doesn't come from winning trades, it comes from following a process that works. Jack Schwager's interviews repeatedly highlight this. Big traders are not obsessed with profits, they're obsessed with behavioral precision. Retail traders, unfortunately, place their confidence in results, not process. This creates emotional whiplash. One good trade fixes this by anchoring your confidence in your execution, not your outcome. There's also the discipline trap. Many traders try to be disciplined in an environment designed to destroy discipline. It's like trying to stay calm in a room full of fire alarms. The moment you simplify and focus on one good trade, your discipline increases automatically because the environment becomes calmer. Brian Tracy teaches that humans perform best when they have one clear objective. Trading is the same. You're not wired to chase 5 things at once. Pros work with biology, not against it. And here is where identity comes in. When you focus on quantity, you become a gambler. When you focus on one good trade, you become a strategist. Your identity shifts from someone trying to win to someone executing with mastery. This identity shift leads to emotional resilience. You stop panicking when price moves. You stop caring about random noise. You stop reacting to impulses. You become the version of yourself the market cannot break. Elder explains that emotional capital is more important than financial capital. One good trade protects your emotional capital because you're not wasting your energy on chaotic decision-making. Retail traders think pros have less fear, but pros simply have less exposure to fear triggers. Fewer decisions, fewer impulses, fewer opportunities to make emotional mistakes.
A Stanford study confirmed that focused attention increases performance accuracy by more than 80%, especially in high-pressure environments like trading. This is exactly why pros build a framework around one good trade, because focus increases precision. The first step pros take is selecting a setup that fits their personality. Not the most popular setup, not the most profitable setup, but the setup that feels natural. Douglas emphasized that consistency comes from emotional comfort. When your setup fits your psychology, execution becomes effortless. Retail traders make the mistake of copying other people's setups. But every setup has psychological demands. Some require patience, others aggression, others discipline. If your setup doesn't match your nature, you'll always struggle. One good trade removes this mismatch by aligning your strategy with who you are. The second element pros build is context. A trade is never just a pattern, it's a story. Pros analyze the story: trend, liquidity, volatility, market condition. Retail traders skip context because they're in a hurry to enter. Pro traders slow everything down. They zoom out, observe, calculate, and then wait. The third element is timing. Timing is everything. Livermore said, "The big money is in the sitting, not the jumping." Pros don't enter at the first sign. They wait for confirmation. One good trade amplifies patience because you're not hunting multiple opportunities. Your mind becomes sharp, observant, precise. Another part of the framework is risk definition. Before pros enter, they already know how much they're willing to lose. They don't adjust stop losses out of fear. They don't widen the risk. Risk is a fixed part of the plan. One good trade gives risk management its rightful place before emotion takes over. Retail traders assume pros win because they predict better. Wrong. Pros win because they manage uncertainty better. They don't eliminate uncertainty, they manage it with structure. A powerful pattern interrupt here. Imagine entering a trade where you feel zero emotional pressure. No fear, no rush, no desperation. That's what happens when one good trade becomes your identity. Pressure disappears because you're not chasing results, you're executing a framework. Pros also use environmental control. They reduce distractions, turn off notifications, and create a ritual. Brian Tracy calls this performance priming, preparing your mind for high-level decisions. Retail traders jump into charts straight from emotional environments, social media, family stress, work pressure. Pros clean their mental environment. Another part of the pro framework is documentation. They take notes, they journal, they track their emotional state. Jack Schwager says documentation is the fastest way to transform a trader because it reveals hidden patterns. Retail traders avoid journaling because they fear confronting their mistakes. But here's the twist. Journaling doesn't show mistakes, it shows progress. One good trade makes journaling easy because you're tracking fewer variables. Pros also study volatility. Not all market conditions are equal. Dr. Elder says market environments change personalities. A calm market rewards patience. A volatile market rewards precision. One good trade allows you to adapt to the environment because you're observing deeply instead of rushing. The framework also includes a post-trade process. Pros don't celebrate wins emotionally. They review behavior. They ask, did I execute my identity? Did I follow my structure? Was I the version of myself I want to be? Retail traders celebrate randomly. Pros celebrate discipline. And here's the identity transformation. When you complete one good trade, you become the type of person capable of doing it again. That repetition builds confidence. That confidence builds consistency. That consistency builds success. One good trade is not a tactic. It's a system of who you become. And when you become the person who masters one good trade, everything changes.
A recent behavioral economics paper found that overconfidence rises by 50% after a winning streak, and fear rises by 45% after a losing streak, creating a deadly emotional cycle for retail traders. Pro traders break this cycle through a mindset most people never learn: the compounding effect of one good trade. Pros understand that trading is a performance art. They treat themselves like athletes. They focus on emotional stamina, mental clarity, and consistency. They don't see trading as every trade matters. They see it as the next good trade matters, and that keeps them grounded. One of the biggest secrets pros use is emotional detachment. Not detachment from passion, but from outcomes. Neuroscience proves that detachment increases logical accuracy by up to 70%. When your outcome doesn't control your emotions, your decisions become stronger. Retail traders, however, connect their self-worth to results. One win makes them feel unstoppable. One loss makes them feel worthless. Pros disconnect self-worth from outcome and reconnect it to behavior. Another secret: pros limit exposure to emotional triggers. They avoid overanalysis, unnecessary opinions, and social media noise. They create a clean psychological environment. This allows them to stay centered on their one good trade. Ed Seykota once said that trends are your friend until the end, but emotions are your enemy from the beginning. This is why pros reduce emotional exposure. One good trade means fewer emotional battles. Pro traders also understand slow mastery. They know that real skill is built quietly over time. Retail traders want instant progress. Pros want gradual mastery. This mindset removes pressure and increases long-term performance. A powerful pattern interrupt here. Most traders ask, how much can I make? Pros ask, how well can I trade this one setup? One question builds greed, the other builds mastery. Another secret is loss acceptance. Pros accept loss before entering. Retail traders only accept loss after pain. Elder says accepting loss before entry protects emotional capital. One good trade integrates this principle automatically. Pros also protect their identity. They don't let one trade define them. They don't let one mistake break them. They see themselves as skilled, disciplined, patient, and that identity guides their behavior. Retail traders often don't have a trading identity. They only have outcomes. One good trade gives you identity. It builds the belief, I am a disciplined trader. I am selective. I execute cleanly. Identity drives behavior, and behavior drives results. Another pro secret is energy control. They don't trade when emotional, tired, or distracted. They guard their focus like a weapon. Retail traders trade in emotional chaos. Pros trade in emotional clarity. The biggest hidden truth is that pros don't think in days or weeks. They think in behavioral cycles. One good trade performed consistently eventually evolves into one good week, one good month, one good year. This is why pros remain consistent, not because they're smarter, but because they live in a loop of controlled, repeatable behavior. And now, the final identity breakthrough. When you commit to one good trade, you stop fighting the market and start walking with it. You stop chasing outcomes
and start mastering execution. You stop acting like a beginner and start thinking like a professional. This is your new path. This is your new identity. This is the mindset pros mastered long before success showed up. Your journey starts with one decision. Commit to one good trade. Commit to the disciplined version of yourself. Commit to the mindset that creates consistency.
There's a powerful psychological truth hidden in every professional trader's success story. When you master the art of one good trade, your brain stops operating from survival and starts operating from strategy. Neuroscientists call this shift prefrontal dominance, where logic, clarity, and pattern recognition become the default mode. Retail traders never reach this mode because their mind is constantly reacting. Pros reach it because they've trained themselves to follow one clear mental pathway, one setup, one narrative, one clean execution. To follow pro psychology, you must first understand the emotional architecture behind it. Mark Douglas taught that true confidence is not the belief that a trade will win, but the belief that you can execute your plan regardless of outcome. That's the mental foundation of one good trade. When you adopt this philosophy, you free yourself from needing to predict. You're no longer emotionally tied to the future. You're anchored in behavior. But this shift doesn't happen from reading quotes or memorizing rules. It happens from conditioning. Pros condition themselves through repetition, not motivation. They execute the same setup hundreds of times until their emotional responses become neutral. That neutrality, calmness under pressure, isn't luck, it's training. And that training begins with a simple question. Do I truly know my setup well enough to trade it effortlessly? Most retail traders know the setup intellectually, but not emotionally. They know the pattern, but not how it feels during volatility. They know the rules, but not the emotional traps inside the rules. Pros know both. They understand that every setup has fear points, hesitation points, hope points, and regret points. They rehearse these scenarios in their mind long before the trade even prints. That's the psychology of mastery. To follow this psychology, you must adopt what Jesse Livermore called calibrated patience, the ability to wait without emotional decay. Retail traders can wait for a setup, but their patience dies with time. They get bored, they get anxious, they second guess. Pros wait with purpose, they wait with confidence, they wait knowing that their patience is part of their edge. One good trade is not only about choosing the right setup, it's about eliminating the noise that destroys it. Your mind can handle uncertainty when it's focused on one thing. It cannot handle uncertainty when you're monitoring endless charts, indicators, and opinions. Dr. Elder explained this perfectly. The more noise you add to your system, the more your mind seeks shortcuts. Those shortcuts turn into impulsive trades. Pro psychology removes the shortcuts by removing the noise. There's something else the pros do that retail traders avoid. They study themselves more than they study the market. They track the time of day they perform best, the emotional states that lead to mistakes, the environments that trigger impatience. Jack Schwager noticed this pattern in every Market Wizard interview. Top traders are brutally honest about themselves. One good trade becomes easier because they've eliminated the behavioral weaknesses that sabotage it. To follow the psychology of pros, you must build emotional automation. Emotional automation means your reactions are pre-decided, not spontaneous. If price spikes against you, you already know what to do. If the candle fakes out, you already know what to think. If price approaches your entry, you already know how to breathe. This destroys fear before it forms. Retail traders rely on the moment to choose. Pros eliminate the moment by choosing in advance. Another secret lies in risk identity. Most traders think risk is a number. Pros treat risk as personality. They know exactly how much risk keeps them emotionally balanced. Too little risk feels meaningless. Too much risk feels destabilizing. One good trade works because the size matches your emotional capacity. Sakota said it best, "If you can't sleep,
you're risking too much. When you calibrate risk to your identity, your mind stays calm enough to execute like a professional. But here's the twist. Following pro psychology doesn't start with trading. It starts with stopping. Stopping distractions, stopping chaos, stopping the emotional sprint. Pros protect their mental clarity before they protect their capital. They don't approach the market tired, stressed, or emotionally fragmented. Brian Tracy's performance studies confirmed that clarity decreases by nearly 40% when your environment is noisy. Retail traders trade in emotional storms. Pros trade in emotional silence. Now let's talk about the pro mindset during the setup itself, the moment the one good trade begins to form. Retail traders see potential profit. Pros see potential behavior. They ask, is this the moment where my discipline gets tested? Is this the moment where my plan gets validated? They don't ask, will it go up? They ask, am I acting like a trader who deserves to win? That identity check is what separates them. Following the psychology also requires what Elder calls calibrated patience. Retail traders put all their emotional weight on one trade. Their mood depends on the outcome. Their identity depends on the candle. Pros spread emotional weight across the entire process. Their self-worth is not tied to one result. This keeps them balanced, calm, and unaffected by randomness. Another key is the ability to detach without disconnecting. Pros detach from results, but they're deeply connected to execution. They're not emotionally cold, they're emotionally consistent. This makes one good trade easier to follow because your emotions are no longer tied to outcome, they're tied to discipline. But here's the painful truth. Most traders don't follow pro psychology because they're addicted to emotional stimulation. They don't want one good trade. They want excitement, they want movement, they want action. The market gives them dopamine, not discipline. Pro psychology requires breaking this addiction. It requires valuing peace over excitement, clarity over chaos, quality over noise. One powerful way to follow pro psychology is through pre-market intention setting. Before the session starts, pros decide who they will be. They choose their emotional posture. They define success as not winning, but as following the process. When the mind knows the mission before the market opens, it reacts with strength, not fear. Retail traders enter the chart hoping to stay disciplined. Pros enter already disciplined. Finally, the most important psychological shift is this. One good trade must become part of who you are. Not a technique, not a tactic, not a trick, but an identity. When you see yourself as a trader who executes one good trade, you naturally act like one. Your mind filters opportunities differently. Your emotions behave differently. Your environment supports you. Your discipline becomes automatic. Following pro psychology is not about working harder. It's about thinking cleaner, acting calmer, and aligning your behavior with the identity of a professional trader. This is what transforms your results from chaos to consistency. This is what turns emotional trading into controlled execution. And this is what makes one good trade the foundation of every great trader's journey.
If this message opened your eyes, hit like, share it with another trader, and subscribe to Mind for Trade. Because together, we build traders who win from the inside out.